Thank you so much, Aurelia. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Stuart Fenwick, and it's a pleasure to host this panel session. Welcome everybody to the discussion, and this is about the impact of cloud on the pace of automation. Our aim in this session is to address some aspects of cloud and automation that are very relevant in today's context. The benefits of governments adopting cloud infrastructure to support long-term digital transformation in public services, and how organizations have responded to the disruption brought about by the recent health crisis that is all very familiar to everybody, by relying increasingly on automation facilitated by cloud capabilities. And the connection between cloud and automation really has two sides. One is related to cloud automation, the solutions that reduce the manual work in deploying and maintaining cloud-based infrastructure, and on the other, related to using cloud infrastructure for orchestrating and managing all the automation operations as a platform. So we have, as you can see on the panel, 3 guests for this discussion, and have some fantastic experiences in this area, either being on the consulting side, the client side, and the vendor side. So please allow me to introduce them at this point and to kick off our dialogue. So first of all, we have Michael Azzopardi. Michael's the technology consulting leader at Ioan Malta. He has over 20 years of experience in strategy, architecture, software engineering and innovation practices, working in global organizations in Switzerland and in the United States, and is obviously based here in EMEA. His experience includes end user technology, software as a service, public cloud infrastructure as a service, enterprise mobility and security. But in particular, Michael's going to share his experience supporting government, public sector, and Malta's migration to the cloud. Then we have Cosmin Panaete. He's the business process director at Regina, the customer, who are a leading healthcare provider in Romania, and quite a trendsetter in the market for technology adoption in its operations. Cosmin is supporting the business to achieve its objectives by identifying the best technology solutions to address the process challenges. He will share with us from his experience their adoption of cloud, especially as it relates to the COVID-19 challenges that we've been experiencing. And then last but not least, we have Rusen from Microsoft Romania. Daniel, welcome. He's the Marketing and Operations Director. He's over 17 years of experience in telco and across IT industries. Daniel's played major roles in ensuring and facilitating the synergy between marketing and operations, and also very much embarking Microsoft's business partners with an in-depth transformation process towards cloud services. One of his customers with Cosmin is here with us in the panel, so it's a great collaboration in the conversation we expect. So we hear directly both from the customer experience, but also the technology experience as well. So very much looking forward to this. Thank you so much for joining me on this conference. And with that, I'd like to kick off with some questions. We've got about half an hour for our discussion. So welcome everybody again. Michael, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good, great. Look, let me start off, as I mentioned before, long experience in cloud, particularly with public sector. I'd love to start off with just asking you, what were the main objectives of the Malta government, and from your perspective around public sector, of the cloud strategy and the migration, and what was the achieved benefits?
So the government of Malta has been one of the main leaders in terms of adopting cloud technology, and the strategy that Malta has in terms of enabling the digitalization of its processes and functions is pretty much enabled through an underlying cloud architecture, hybrid cloud architecture. The fundamental goals are to actually digitalize the processes. You have legacy systems like any large organization, We have a fragmented landscape of different technologies, some of them more legacy. And in order to start connecting these processes, these functions, you need an underlying platform that allows you to actually transform those architectures into more structured, better decomposed solutions that allow you to integrate with legacy systems as well, enable new systems. So fundamentally, the benefits of the cloud is that it allows us to actually surface this data, make it available across different operational pillars of the organization. And we've been using domain-driven design as a foundation to that in order to make sure that the design of the architecture of microservices for the new solutions is actually very much tied to the actual business functions and business processes. Ultimately, the key benefit is actually enabling live events for the citizens. So instead of actually just focusing on a particular form or making access a particular piece of information, you're actually connecting these processes through a live event model. And exposing that through mobile channel, exposing that through web channel, making it more accessible, easier to use, and reducing the application of information and the data that citizens need to provide in the interaction with government. I guess we lost Stuart. So in the meantime, until Stuart joins again, the key enabling capability that we see with serving citizens, enabled through cloud and the technologies that cloud platforms actually provide to public service organizations as well as private sector, is essentially agility. Faster time to respond to the business. In order to deal with regulatory changes, legislative changes, new services being offered, it's much more affording for the ability to actually outsource the development of the various components that make up the services provided by government to citizens. We're seeing the same, obviously, in private sector. Larger organizations and small organizations alike are actually leveraging cloud in order to actually transform that client experience. Similar with the relationship between public sector and citizens, either business to government to business, government to citizen, or even between different organizations within government. Definitely one of the biggest advantage here is the fact that once you have a strategic cloud platform positioned for the public sector organization, then you can start leveraging capabilities like artificial intelligence, more in-depth data and analytics, and obviously automation of the underlying processes. This really lays the foundation for that citizen lifecycle experience. We would like to think this as a re-engineering of the government operations or the business operations. And in fact, the government of Malta has been issuing various call for tenders, building new capability or modernizing existing capability, always with that cloud foundation being in place. We worked with the government of Malta and also in developing the strategy for the national strategy for AI. And in that process, we looked at various functions of government and how AI can be leveraged when it comes to providing a more personalized, a more tailored, a more advanced experience to users, to citizens, be it education, be it healthcare. So there's multitude of opportunities for innovation and the digitalization of that experience, and cloud is always a foundational component of that infrastructure, that layer in order to enable to enable smarter solutions. So, Stuart, I see you're back. I've covered also our second point in the discussion in terms of how cloud enables the organization to actually serve its citizens, and how access to AI, data and analytics, and automation capabilities really fit into that whole story of cloud being a foundational enabler for digitalization.
Fantastic. Michael, thank you for continuing the conversation a bit longer than expected. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, sorry to the audience there, just some technical difficulties. Thank you for those insights around Malta government. Cosmin, could I turn to you now? And as we mentioned, Regina Maria, and I'd love to hear from you and to share your insights with the audience. What were the plans in terms of digitalization and cloud adoption before COVID-19? What things did you have in place as part of your cloud strategy in the first place?
Basically, our cloud strategy wasn't changed due to COVID-19, but it was very accelerated. We like to say that the plans that we had for the next couple of years happened in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So we had in plan to launch the virtual clinic, but we are going a totally different pace. We are planning to launch it in next year or probably in 2 years. And we managed to launch it in basically 10 days. And in order to do that, we had to utilize the tools that we had. Fortunately for us, we had just implemented within our organization teams for the entire back office and management. And we connected practically this platform to our medical and operational system in order to be able to scale up very quickly. So what Cloud and Teams allowed us to do is to scale up very quickly the virtual clinic to, let's say, 10 to 20,000 consultation a month and 500 doctors in, we like to say, in 10 days.
Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. And the ability for technology to reach out to that kind of audience and help them do their jobs quicker and more effectively was obviously a big benefit. I would love to hear as well, because we know that technology is only one part of the equation. People in process, like you mentioned, the doctors and the patients are also part of that as well. So how easy was the adoption and the onboarding process for doctors and patients into the new platform, and how were they able to adapt to a new way of working?
Surprisingly, it was very easy. I guess the COVID crisis and the lockdown shifted the priorities of everyone, and the doctors who were previously very concerned about giving virtual consultations and let's say the risk faced by this type of service considered that their priority to get connected to their patient and be able to provide the service surpassed the risks associated with the virtual consultation. So we were surprised to see that due to this new environment and let's say need to find new solution, both the doctors and the patients were open to transition to the new way of doing things.
Yeah. Great.
What we did to ease the process was try to align or give them the environment as close to their previous way of working in our application. So basically, we embedded Teams and the virtual consultation within their existing infrastructure. So it was not a very important change for them. It was just another step in providing the consultation. All the rest of the process and the system remained the same.
Okay, great. I mean, thanks for sharing that. Daniel, maybe to move to you now. How do you see the role of leadership in steering digitalization? You need project sponsorship, and leadership plays a huge role in that. to successfully adopt these new technologies and also maximize the business impact, not just as a technology project or exercise. Could you share some thoughts with the audience?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, Stuart, first of all, and thank you for the question. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. So I would like to start with a survey that we have run a couple of years back, I would say. We ran a survey for business leaders, and we found out that 91% of those business leaders see digital transformation as a way of sparking innovation and finding, ways to make an organization more efficient. So 91%, which is a huge number. So everyone basically wants to go through the digital transformation as a strategy. Then 60% out of those leaders said the time is now. So you cannot delay anymore those transformational processes because you need to compete in the market. We saw also that this current pandemic accelerated this rhythm of transformation. And Cosmin actually said a little bit earlier, they have the plan, but the plan was spanning through 2 years or 3 years and so on. They pushed the plan to happen now because they needed that this technology should be available for the patients now. They needed the process to be available now. Now, we have this mindset, so this is the first step. Then we see companies that are embracing digital transformation and are really feeling excited about this transformation. And they also are shaping real and good results, like Regina Maria did. So they have a success after implementing this new process of consulting the patients. Unfortunately, we see also other companies that feel the pain of digital transformation. And mostly the biggest problem for those organizations that see, a challenge during the digital transformation is the fact that they are thinking about digital transformation as, a disruption move, a massive disruption move. And digital transformation should not be a massive disruption move, should be a journey. Should be a journey that has steps, that has people that are engaged across the organization in order to make that digital transformation a success for the organization. Now, considering those things and working with thousands of organizations over the years, and based on our experience, we work with thousands of customers through their digital transformation journey, I would say that you need two strategic directions to drive digital transformation in a company. The first and most important is the vision and the strategy. Vision is perhaps the most important one. Is the one that directs successful organization toward the single North Star. So you have a goal, you know what that goal is, and then you embark throughout the entire organization through your strategy, through your vision towards that goal. So this is really important to set up for yourself a vision and a strategy. The second one, which is also really important, is the culture. When we see organizations that are best in driving digital transformation, they have a culture of transformation. They have people inside that organization that are unified and are working towards the same goal and the same idea. So this type of, organizations that have fostered a culture of transformation, a culture of change, a culture of innovation, they are successful to drive this digital transformation. So from my point of view, it's not a very complicated thing. You need those two things as a leader to instill in your organization vision and strategy, and of course the culture. And then you need to take it step by step. You don't, have to go all in and say, I want to transform my entire organization, because in some cases you'll create disruptions and not positive disruption. Unfortunately, that will affect the way that you are driving the rhythm of digital transformation. Take it step by step. It's a journey. Assess what you have done, see the impact, see the results, see the way that those results have affected your customers, and then take the next step and the next step and the next step. We are calling this the digital transformation journey and a continuous feedback loop, because you do something, you take the results, and then you make it better and better and better.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing that. And like you say, culture is a huge part of it. You're always looking for those champions that are willing to make some of the first steps. But then with that, you get the experience, and then you just build on it from there. So I think having that North Star, like you say, is really, really important about the ultimate benefits that you're going to get as you move into the cloud. I'm going to come back to you a little bit later about talking about people and skills, because I think that's a critical element to that. And I know you're going to share some thoughts there. But if I go back to Michael again, Michael from EY, you've all got the experience of working in the public sector. We heard about we heard just there from Daniel about what some of the important leadership aspects around digitalization. But I'm sure within the journey of the government public sector adopting cloud, there were some challenges and some barriers. Could you share a little bit about what you think some of them were, and maybe how they overcame them?
Absolutely, and I really love to hear Daniel's statement that this journey requires a clear vision, and it is a journey that takes you through one stage of evolution to the next. You're transforming by making those small changes, those adaptations. As I said in the beginning, cloud gives you the foundation to that, but absolutely it's not just a technology problem. It's also a culture problem, a behavior problem, a methods problem, a leadership challenge. The experience, I've worked with public sector, but I've also spent 17 years working in the financial services industry. Large organizations always struggle in terms of actually doing that paradigm shift. You need the senior leadership, setting the vision, but also driving that transformation by allowing people to develop and leverage those capabilities. We've seen it's a fundamental shift in terms of the technology paradigm, the programming language, the use of technology, the degree of control you have on the various aspects of the underlying solution. I think one of the main challenges, particularly organizations that tend to have a long tail of legacy transformation that they need to take care of, very typical in financial services, same in public sector. The shift from cloud to from traditional systems, monolithic systems to cloud systems requires a change in the software engineering paradigm. Now, it's if you want to really maximize the capabilities, the elasticity, the flexibility, the agility that cloud gives you, you need to actually transform that traditional software engineering practice and really embrace the agile processes. And it's not easy. The mindset shift, the culture shift, the shock, the risks, because it presents new risk. But if you don't, as leaders, if you don't recognize that risk and that shift early on, it's much harder to actually take you from the traditional model to this new paradigm. So old thinking is definitely a blocker. It is a barrier. We've seen situations where people were very much where they had their batch processes closed at heart, because I received the data from that system every Friday night, and I run the batch process and create a report, and I want to check it. No, you have an event-based architecture, a microservice, service-oriented architecture. You don't need to wait until Friday night for that process to actually transition the information from one system to the next. You don't need to actually have your business process tailored to the fact that the data is going only to be available at the end of the week. Yeah. So through that underlying transformation, that re-engineering process, you have to actually endorse the fact that the business processes need to evolve, and that's where you need to have a close collaboration between the process owners, the business stakeholders, and the various owners of the systems, because in order to maximize the value that you're obtaining through this journey, you have to really let go on some of the things that you've done in the past.
Like you say, a huge part of this is a cultural shift in terms of adopting cloud, and the adoption of agile methodologies is part of that. Thank you for sharing that. Cosmin, if I come back to you, what benefits do you have today? You talked a lot about implementing this new system, a lot about using real-time collaboration and the video conferencing and the tools that were there as part of Teams. What benefits do you have today that you didn't even consider at the beginning?
Well, First of all, we are surprised to see that by opening the virtual clinic, we gain access to a whole new category of patients. We have patients from geographic regions that we were not present in, even patients from abroad. I mean, we have Romanians who live abroad, but even foreigners who are seeking doctors from our hospitals and seeking interventions in our hospitals, and were able to contact their doctor and make a first appointment and be able to decide if they want to come to this hospital or not. Second of all the developments that we made for the virtual clinic, we very easily expanded to the physical consultation. For example, online appointments, ability to upload your medical file, automatic issuing of invoicing and billing, and so on. All these were very easily transported to our entire business. So basically, our entire digital experience has been enriched by this pilot that we've done with the virtual clinic. Coming back to your previous question regarding the barrier in place of adopting cloud and virtual and digital services, I think particularly in the public sector, the regulatory environment is one of the most important breaks that comes in implementing this. For example, in our case, virtual consultation were not clearly defined as a medical service in Romania. We have now, till the end of the year, let's say, bypass of the law that allows us to provide this service. But for long term, the regulatory environment usually is behind the practice. And this happens in the entire virtualization or digital services. If you ask about cloud, let's say, where data stands is a major issue regarding national boundaries and so on. Electronic signature needs to be clearly defined and so on. For us in medical services, we still want a clear definition of virtual consultations in the legislation. So I think at this point, the regulatory environment needs to catch up with the practice.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. It's always very interesting to see how there's a need in the market. You're hearing from the patients and the doctors the criticality of the services that are required, even to the point where you're reaching out to other people that you might not have touched before, like you highlight, but at the same time being very conscious about the regulatory environment that's there and the need for this to continually to sort of work in partnership. Otherwise, it's not that regulations are not important, they are, but they need to also be moving at a pace where you get the results you need for delivering the services to the community. Very interesting to hear. Daniel, coming back to you as well, the impact of accelerated digitalization is a reality, not just for public sector, not just for healthcare, although that's probably very front of mind, but every industry, in Romania, companies need to be not only the ones that quickly adapt to the best technologies, but also to develop their own digital capabilities within themselves. Do you think you have already noticed an increased appetite among companies for the development of employee skills? You talked a lot about, setting a North Star, people moving along that journey, the cultural aspect, but some people might not have those skills today. They may be, just skills in legacy platforms or legacy technologies. So I'd love to hear, your experience of how they're approaching this, not just within public sector or healthcare, but across any industries. What's your thoughts there?
Yes, Stuart, thank you for the question. Absolutely. So in short, the answer is absolutely. Now, allow me to elaborate a little bit. We define these new days that we are living like transformational days, like tech intensity days, because everywhere we look, we are surrounded by technology. Even in our personal life, we have phones, we have laptops, we have digital stuff around the house. Now, in this, tech intensity world, we have two major components. One is the technology, and that we are using to drive the digital transformation within our companies. And the second one, which is really, really important, that it's enabling the digital transformation, is the digital skills. You cannot have a successful digital transformation within your company if you do not have the right digital skills within that company. We ran a survey last year with IDC in the Romanian market to understand exactly what is happening in terms of digitalization of the current business environment. We saw the companies that are adopting transformation and that are adopting technology, they have two things that are really important. The first one that we have talked a little bit about the strategy, about the culture, and the second one, they have the people ready to adopt and drive their own technology. It's not just the fact that you can buy something off the shelf. Regina Maria didn't do that. They had, some technology that that Microsoft was providing, that other partners were providing to them, but they built that technology within their own company. They adapted to fit their own needs, their customer needs, their own personal system, and that needs to happen within the company, and that needs to have, the digital skill within that company. Now, coming back to the current environment, what we have seen through the summer, we have run also some surveys using our own platform. You know that LinkedIn is part of Microsoft currently, that GitHub is part of Microsoft currently. So we use all those external platforms that are providing learning platform for our customers, and we see a tremendous increase in the last period of time. For example, Microsoft Learn has grew 475% this May versus last May. LinkedIn Learning, which is providing a very extensive set of trainings and skills, it's growing 400% this year versus last year. And GitHub, which is meant or built towards more a developer ecosystem, it's growing 900% in terms of, accessing the learning and the trainings paths that are available there. So we see that absolutely the companies and especially the individuals find this period of time really important for them to grow and develop new set of skills that will enable first of them themselves to adapt properly to the current environment, and then empower the companies that are working for to accelerate their digital transformational skills. So this is an absolutely amazing experience that we are seeing right now. And also, it is really important to comprehend that you having at your disposal those digital platforms that you can use to improve your skills, you can do it in your own pace. You can do it, in the weekends, you can do it in the afternoons, you can do it during your work hours, if you find the time to do that, because you have this availability to improve your skills whenever you have the time to do that. So this is also this kind of flexibility that this digital platform is providing to you is really important. You don't have, to plan to go to a specific room to spend 8 hours in a desk in order to go to a certain training, in order to gain a certification. So this is really impactful, the way that people are consuming those trainings, are consuming learning, and are impactful the way that they're, learning and gaining certification. Now, I want to speak a little bit also from the Microsoft perspective. Sorry, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, no, carry on. Maybe as you just think about weaving that in, may I add, I'd love to hear your comments, not just about only, maybe we think when it's cloud automation and all of these tools, that it's just the technical environment, technical people that are learning new skills. But I'd love to also hear about, the employees from the non-tech functions, how their knowledge is, how much their knowledge do you think is essential for them to have in order to stay relevant? So maybe as you're talking about, fantastic to hear these platforms that you just mentioned, but if you could just finish off that answer, but do it in a way such as both technical and non-technical, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yes, it's a valuable, segue. Because not only the technical people are developing this set of skills. Again, those platforms that I have shared a little bit earlier are mostly towards the technical people within an organization. But LinkedIn has numerous types of study, numerous types of learning tracks. If you want to develop your marketing skills, if you want to develop your sales skills, if you want to, touch on your growth mindset, for example, or mindfulness in some particular area, you have the resources there to develop the skills. Now, I want to add a little bit more on this, learning practices within an organization. And I truly believe that non-technical employees should have a minimum set of trainings that will enable them to work with the new digital tools at their disposal. And we see an example that Cosmin, and I say we always do Cosmin because we are very close working in these projects. we see medics that were, had to use this new digital platform. And if we didn't do the trainings before about, learning to use this new digital platform like Microsoft Teams, then for them, this transition could be a little bit harder. So having the knowledge, having the tools already in place, and allowing companies like Microsoft or Microsoft partners to go and help your employees to gain knowledge to use these new digital skills that you have put in place is really important for every company. Doesn't matter the role or the position that a certain employee is. We can adapt the training specifically for a certain job, specifically for a certain role, to gain the best out of any digital tool. And I can speak on behalf of Microsoft and Microsoft partners, but it's the same throughout the technology stack. We saw earlier a demo made by UiPath, So it's not very difficult, but you need to do a little bit of training in order to make sure that you are able to use that digital tool to the full extent and the full benefit for your organization and for yourself. So I highly think that every individual should be able to have the proper tools and should be able to have the proper training in order to gain the best benefits out of those tools that are implementing. And I think this is the successful way towards the digital transformation.
Yeah, I think we all know the change and the demand that's been placed on everybody, working, non-working, to have flexibility in your work-life balance. It's a fantastic opportunity, and it's amazing to get access to these kind of platforms to weave that into your sort of lifestyle and your work-life balance. And I guess it's down to being empowered to be able to use them when you need, and then to continue to grow your skills. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Michael, coming to you, I'm starting to shift about, we've talked a little bit about benefits adopting cloud. We've talked a little bit about some of the use cases, particularly in public sector and also then in healthcare, some things around culture and skilling. When you start looking towards the future and beyond where we are today, what aspects need to be considered when implementing a cloud strategy at a government level? You've talked about some of the successes with Malta, but how do you envisage, government more holistically around the public services and implementing a cloud strategy, particularly around things like legislation and sort of regulatory considerations as well that, Cosmin mentioned just a little bit earlier also?
So there are a number of aspects. We were just seeing the start of this journey, right? We've seen that transformation happening in the 80s with certain data processing, and in the 90s again with the advent of the internet. This journey that has started definitely requires some foundational decisions. Positioning cloud as one of the pillars of those enabling elements is and putting cloud choice, cloud first as a choice in terms of the platform is important. We've seen it also. The European Commission has, with the DigiDigit program, is doing that. However, it's not the only thing that needs to be in place. Similar to what we've seen in the private sector, you need to have the right frameworks in place, and the right governance structure to ensure that you have coherency in terms of meeting the legislative requirements, the regulatory requirements, the security requirements. For example, GDPR has been at the top of the agenda on a number of discussions. We are constantly faced with situations, and I'm sure Cosmin sees that, that one entity owns a particular set of data and the other entity owns another set of data, and there's this dependency, but there are restrictions in terms of sharing that information, even when you are actually trying to provide that service to the business user, to the citizen, etc. So having those frameworks in place is really fundamental. We've developed a cloud controls framework that brings together the security best practices from ISO standards and other standards in the industry, the Cloud Security Alliance, best practices from technology providers like Microsoft, as well as regulatory considerations into one single framework. And in the work that we did in terms of enabling this agile journey, we actually integrated that framework as part of an end-to-end life cycle from requirements to business process analysis to specification and DevOps, right? So those elements are not an afterthought that you need to check around compliance or a barrier that hinders you in terms of doing the right steps, but really integrating that into the whole design process. So that framework is really one of the first that we've developed and applied in this particular context, particularly to deal with the kind of constraints and blockers, mental blockers that organizations might face. One important element that we're seeing is the creation of digital innovation and digital transformation hubs. This is really an enabler to have knowledge, be it training on change of thinking, design thinking processes, process redesign activities. So the business stakeholders are actually part of that process of redesigning and reinventing that citizen experience, but also giving access to best practices, expertise, and resources. Prototyping is really as part of that agile process, as part of the journey, is really also important. So creating an environment where you encourage innovation by allowing sandboxing of prototyping and prototyping activities is important. Malta, for example, over the recent years have introduced legislation specifically around virtual financial assets in order to actually support the adoption of digital ledger technologies. And there is an agency, the MDIA, which enables that legislative transformation by really bringing the thinking and best practices to the government entities, and then transform the legislation accordingly.
Okay. No, thank you for sharing that. And I'm really keen to hear as well from Cosmin about the areas that he's thinking about that would be, what are the new areas in which you plan to adopt cloud computing, and maybe why, particularly around automations going forward after the success of your virtual client experience and your virtual clinic experience.
So we're practically shifting our entire client-facing infrastructure towards the cloud. Why? Because we need very rapid, let's say, scale up. And in order to do this internally, it's very expensive and it doesn't make sense. So we're planning to move our CRM in the cloud. We're moving our customer account creation and using services from the cloud, such as facial recognition, combined with ID scanning and so on. We're implementing chatbots and both in writing and on voice. And even our main applications, such as stock management, we're starting to moving toward the cloud. Why? Because it's much more flexible. And I think in the next couple of years, everything that need expanding or reducing very rapidly will move to this type of virtual infrastructure. It doesn't make sense to buy your own servers. For example, in our case, if we were to provide video and audio infrastructure for the volume of consultation, 10,000 consultations per month, I don't know how much we would have taken us. We are to scale our CRM, for example, to the customer service, call center, sales teams, and marketing. For the volumes that we are increasing to 20% per year, it doesn't make sense to do it internally. And we're shifting this entire infrastructure towards cloud.
Okay. Thank you for sharing those thoughts about how you're thinking about the future. Obviously, you've seen some great benefits from cloud already, and your journey is continuing. I just like to say at this point, very much, I think our time is pretty much wrapping up here. A big thank you to Michael, to Cosmin, and also to Daniel. Really appreciate the insights you shared. I would just say at this point, just some quick conclusions from my side is we've seen organizations both in public sector and healthcare adjust extremely quickly to the challenges we've had over the last couple of months. And cloud and automation has been an intrinsic foundational platform for adjusting to that. I think we've seen a very accelerated and compressed adoption of cloud with success. We've also heard how the regulations are an important part of this, and that governance frameworks and approaches around cloud controls are an important element, but also that, it's a two-way street here, and that regulation plus technology needs to work together. And then, Daniel highlighted very strongly about setting that North Star, setting and identifying the champions associated with the cloud strategy, and that culture is an incredibly important part. It's not just about the technology, it's the people in the process. And these flexible platforms like GitHub, LinkedIn, and others are a great environment for flexibly learning new skills. So again, thank you, Michael, Cosmin, and Daniel for joining us in the audience. To everybody in the audience, thank you for tuning in, and I hope that was of great value to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.